This is Ask Pastor Steve, and today I'm covering just one question because I want to say a little bit more about it. And here is the question. Good question. Thanks for sending it. Does the Bible allow a woman to divorce her husband for domestic violence? Does the Bible allow that? For domestic violence, a man who's inflicting bodily harm upon his wife. So let's start here. I just want to really commend you for asking the question, does the Bible allow? I'm so glad you started there. Too many people wouldn't start there, but we want to be biblical people. We want to take all things captive to obedience to Christ. So thank you for asking, does the Bible allow? I want to start a little broader than what you're asking. We'll narrow down to your question in a minute. But let's start at the broader question, and that is, does the Bible allow for any divorce? And absolutely it does. Christians are going to differ on this, but I believe the Bible allows divorce for two reasons. One is fornication. Jesus talks about that in Matthew 19:9, which is rooted in Deuteronomy chapter 24. And also the Bible allows divorce for the departure of a non-Christian spouse. He's not content to live with you now that you're a believer and he leaves. That's what we call abandonment, 1 Corinthians 7:15 in the surrounding context. So the Bible does allow for those two reasons. Let me put that a different way. So the Bible does not give us no-fault divorce, which first appeared in the U.S., in California, in 1969, and is now throughout the whole land. Just divorce for any cause. She burned my toast, I don't like her, I'm going to divorce her. That is absolutely not biblical. So the Bible is rather narrow for good reasons. Humans need to stay married. Children need to have intact parents. This is good for society. Sometimes parents who aren't getting along just need to tough it out because we can't just have people divorcing all over the place like we do. But now to narrow down to your question more, what about domestic violence? What about physical abuse? And by the way, I'm just going to include rape under that. Rape. Can a husband rape his wife? Absolutely. Even within the bounds of marriage, no means no. And if your wife says no, then you don't just force things, right? That would be rape within a marriage. So what about domestic violence, including that? And I'm going to say, here's my view, and there's lots of other people agree with me in this view. I agree with them in this view. And that is the Bible allows divorce for domestic violence under the abandonment clause of 1 Corinthians 7. Let me explain. So in 1 Corinthians 7:15, Paul allows, as I already said, divorce for the abandonment of an unbelieving spouse. But what happens when there's domestic violence? I'll tell you what needs to happen. The woman needs to get out. She needs to get to safety. She needs to get away. She needs to get the kids away and probably stay away for quite a while because it'll happen again. Like, don't go home tomorrow, okay? Don't go back to that. Call the police because he's breaking the law. Tell your pastors because he's breaking ecclesiastical law, church law, God's law. So in domestic violence, what needs to happen? She needs to go away. So now there is a separation. They're separated. He's here. She went over there for her safety and the safety of the kids. Now, here's an important thing to think about. Here's an important question. Who caused that separation? Did she come up with a reason why she wants to separate? Did she make it happen? No, he forced it. He caused that separation, the violent man. The woman didn't want to separate. She wanted a nice man, a self-controlled man, and she'd stay there with him. But he forced her, for her own protection, to separate. So I believe that this comes under a clause in 1 Corinthians 7 where Paul says, in such cases, plural, the believer is not in bondage. In such cases. So the question is, does such cases mean specifically all cases where there's an unbelieving spouse who's departing? Or is it a broader category, cases plural, and there are other kinds of cases that would fit under this heading? In such cases, she's not bound. Now, the Christian scholar who did the work on this for us, there's only one who really did the work on this, and that is none other than Mr. Wayne Grudem, great guy. He did the work. I've read his paper. It is very convincing. He handles the language as well. He does his historical research and the use of this term well. And this is a broader category term that Paul uses in 1 Corinthians 7. It includes other kinds of things. Domestic violence would certainly qualify. If there's something else that would qualify, domestic violence would certainly qualify. Now let's add this, however. 1 Corinthians 7 only allows divorce from a non-Christian who abandons. It's got to be a non-Christian. It doesn't say the Christian may divorce for abandonment. It's a non-Christian. But here's how this works. A woman says, but my husband professes faith, and he's been domestically violent with me, and I had to separate. The church needs to excommunicate him immediately. Like, go straight to XCOM. Let him be unto you as a heathen and a tax gatherer. Guess what? Now in the judgment of the church, you are married to an unsaved man. The church has deemed him as a heathen and a tax gatherer because of his unrepentant, assuming it is unrepentant, because of the way he's been treating you. Now she has been abandoned by an unbeliever, 1 Corinthians 7. And again, I'm saying she has been abandoned because he's the one who forced her out by the beating. He's the one who made her depart to save life and limb. So that's how Wayne Grudem argues. That's how a whole lot of other people argue, and I'm very satisfied that they are arguing rightly. They are arguing well. But now there's a wife who says, but I'm supposed to be submissive to my husband. Well, thank you for taking that seriously. May your tribe increase. Way, way too few are taking that command seriously, that you really need to be submissive to your husband. But dear sister, there are limits to a wife's submission. Let me give you some examples. Your husband wants you to help him rob a bank. You say, no. Your husband wants to introduce a third party into the intimate parts of marriage. You say, no. Your husband wants you to submit to physical beatings. You say, no. There are limits to a woman's submission, and domestic abuse is certainly one of them. Now, let me give you some resources if you want to read more about this topic in a general way, just about divorce, what the Bible teaches about divorce and remarriage. So this is the one you want to read if you're a pretty serious reader. Can you see that? There it is. It's by John Murray. This is my copy from back in, 1980 or something. It's on divorce. This is the one. So, if you want to differ with the standard Christian view that there may be a divorce for fornication or there may be a divorce for a departing, unbelieving spouse, if you want to disagree with that, this is the guy you have to go up against. This is the Goliath. You have to beat Goliath. You can't go after the barber down the street who wrote a 2-page paper on the issue. He doesn't count. This guy counts. To make it a little more palatable, this guy came along and said, I'm going to make that more easy reading. And this fellow, Jay Adams, the father of a whole branch of Christian counseling, wrote this Marriage, Divorce, and Remarriage in the Bible. Just for curiosity, got mine in 1982. That one was 80. That one's 82. So you have to learn to identify who are the Goliaths that I need to best if I'm going to win in this argument. So those are the two you want to best. And they both teach, I think, very, very biblically, that there is divorce in the Bible for those two reasons. But now this paper I mentioned, let me give you more details. The author is Wayne Grudem. The title of the paper is long. All right, you can rewind. Here it is. Grounds for Divorce, Why I Now Believe There Are More Than Two, An argument for including abuse in the phrase in such cases in 1 Corinthians 7:15, by Wayne Grudem for the Evangelical Theological Society, San Diego, 11/21 of 2019. Paper by Wayne Grudem. Just Google Wayne Grudem, Grounds for Divorce. You'll find it. Thanks for listening. Hope you'll join me again.
In your courts, your